All right. Howdy, folks. Hope you're doing well today. Back here with yet another Let's Play video. We're now continuing on this Case Blue offensive. And I'm calling it Case Blue, but it may not actually be Case Blue. I guess in the last video title, I did not call it Case Blue. The reason why is because I'm not sure what should we actually focus on. And I'll get into more of that in later on. But for those of you who've been watching, you'll notice that the last video I did 2 parts. And that's because I somehow ended up talking so much longer than I expected. It ended up being a 3-hour-long video. So I decided to break it up into 2 parts. I think somewhere between the range of hour 2 hours is reasonable. But with that said, we're going to continue on. It is now July 1942. Very strange last month. The Germans did launch an attack in early June, but in the second half of June, we didn't really see any continuation of the German offensive. And the answer for why that is, I think, is pretty obvious. It's simply because they couldn't mobilize their army. Like, literally, there wasn't enough HQ command range, if we want to call it that. There weren't enough HQs either in range or at full strength to actually mobilize this large cluster of German units that you see here, mostly in the central front. Having said that, the German army did break through pretty much in the central sector. I would say, somewhere between, I would argue the Eastern Front actually has 4 sectors, not 3, although typically we describe it as 3, right? We have usually the Leningrad assault, the assault on Moscow, and then the third assault would be the Caucasus, oil fields, or somewhere in southern Soviet Union, including Ukraine. This offensive took place pretty much in the northeastern sector bordering Ukraine and, say, the Soviet Union. And so as a result of that, or I should say Russia, technically. I think technically it's still part of Ukraine. I mean, this game doesn't actually even specify Ukraine. There's no border. I don't see a borderline between, say, Bessarabia and, between Ukraine and Bryansk, right? What am I saying? Ukraine and Belorussia, or modern-day Belarus, right? But I do see a gray line that's right there, right? You can see very carefully, if you look carefully, there's a little gray line there. That is actually the summer 1942 historical setup, it seems like. So these lines are not intended to show necessarily the borders between nations. They're really meant to show the borders between the different kind of starting scenarios for each consecutive year of the war. Okay, so with that, let's just dive in. I don't want to have too long of an intro. But the German army did smash the Soviets. We inflicted a lot of casualties. I'm talking a lot. I mean, it's pretty much the equivalent of something like the initial successes of Operation Barbarossa. And I don't know why that's the case. I wish I could give you a deeper analysis as to why that's the case, give you a numerical analysis, or I guess that would be a quantitative analysis, but we're not there yet. No problem. We will get there at some point. But from the current data that I do have available, you can see this is the dead pile, and you can see there's a cluster of 3 and 4 Soviet armies that were all destroyed. 7 Soviet armies. I mean, each army is probably about the size of roughly 100,000 troops. Right? If each division is, say, about 10,000 troops, each step is about 3 divisions. You're looking at about 9 divisions per formation. That's about 90,000 troops, maybe more, 100,000. It all kind of depends. But these 7 armies is pretty much the equivalent of around 700,000 Soviet troops, probably more. And then we also have 2 Soviet mech formations, the 2 that I actually built up that were intended to stop the German push into this northeastern sector of Ukraine. So technically it's the southern front. Technically it's part of the central front. I would say it's a bit of both, right? Kind of gravitated around Kursk. But either way, we we did smash the Soviets, and the Soviets definitely lost about 750,000 troops, and who knows how many tanks, artillery, etc. But I imagine it's probably in the thousands. So we're going to start the Soviet production. We'll begin the log file. We're going to start the Soviet production. They take priority for sure. The Soviet army did do, we did do a pretty good withdrawal. If you ask me, I just full out retreat. And what I came to realize is that the Soviets really just don't have a lot of, their reserves are pretty scarce. You would think the Soviets have just a ridiculously powerful reserve, but after reading a lot of David Glantz's, many of his books, I've read about 2.5 of his books so far, but what I've come to realize is that even though the Soviet reserves were impressive in numbers, they weren't necessarily impressive in terms of operational capability. In fact, I can't even entirely say that for certain. I'm still trying to do a deeper analysis, but the point I'm trying to make in this video is that the Soviets got smashed big time, and now their combat strength has been reduced significantly, but still maybe enough to hold back the German army. If not hold them back, we can just keep building up more and more reserves. So I would say the Soviet reserves are very reliable in terms of showing up. They're not necessarily the most reliable in terms of actually achieving operational success, at least not in the year 1941 or 1942. Is not until we actually have better attacking units that hopefully we'll see a more effective Red Army. Pretty much, I think the winter campaign I did demonstrate a little bit of a better effectiveness with the Red Army, without even large tank armies, but still our attacks are very limited. And now we lost 7 armies, so we pretty much lost probably 1 or 2 Soviet fronts. I'm not sure how many. And so now the question is, well, what are we going to do to fix this problem? I decided to do a total retreat. I fell back to Stalingrad. I have kind of like a powerful reserve here in Stalingrad. We got the shock army there. We got an HQ there. Stalingrad only has 1 Soviet army defending it right now, not 2, as we had historically. Also, I looked into this game, and you look at the actual unit types, and they definitely, the developers definitely reduced the total amount of Soviet armies, because you'll see here on the top left, these are all the units that are available that I can deploy with the Soviets, and you'll see that for the section where it's 6, there is no 62nd, or I believe it's the 64th Army, right? Either 62nd, 63rd, or 64th for the Battle of Stalingrad. They're not here. So clearly the developers cut down on the total amount of Soviet units. So that's going to affect our play style, I do think. But it's probably for balancing reasons and just to keep the game flowing. We have a partial defense of the Don River line here. We still have Rostov defended. But unfortunately, the German army could, in theory, flank this defense, and we really have nothing as far as a rear guard to protect the Caucasus oil fields. We really don't have much, right? We have these units here protecting the border against Turkey. If I decide to deploy these outside of this border, then the Axis can start rolling their dice for the diplomatic event to get Turkey into the war. I can show you that real quick. It's towards the bottom of the rule book. You go to the Soviet Allied diplomacy, and there's this table. And, I'm sorry, you actually want to go to the Axis diplomacy. And then TX, Turkey joins the Axis. And one of the conditions is you count the number of undefended Soviet cities on the Turkish border. And whatever the dice roll is, if it's less than the count, Turkey will join the Axis. So I'm not incentivized to pull these units out just yet. So that's that. So Soviet production, let's see, it's pretty good though. It's 62. So we have a lot of production points to build up new units. So let's go ahead and start doing that. I think the first thing right off the bat is just rebuild as many destroyed Soviet armies as possible. Just build them up all over again, right? And I'm going to try to be really strategic with these units. I'm just going to pretty much sprinkle them around pretty much randomly. I would like to be more historically consistent if I could, but unfortunately, I just haven't been able to track all the Soviet armies. I'm actually doing a little project there to track the Soviet formations that were destroyed and redeployed in 1941 for Operation Barbarossa. But 1942, as far as my memory goes, it's a complete mystery, quite frankly. But I know that someone, I think Glantz knows, right? Someone like Glantz would know. He probably doesn't know off the top of his head, but he probably has a good sense of some of the more unique Soviet formations. So if I were to build all 7 Soviet armies, each of them at cadre strength, or the cadre build, which is the level 1 step, that's going to cost 4 production points per unit. So if I spend production on all 7 to rebuild all 7, it's going to cost me 28 production points. And I actually frankly think that's actually a pretty good deal, if you ask me. And so that way, maybe I can just go to show that, despite the German success, they're going to need to achieve much more success overall if they expect to defeat the Soviet Union. I'm also going to put another unit maybe in Saratov as a strategic reserve because, at this point, the German army can just, there's this entire sector of the front is just a gaping hole, right? So that the Germans can definitely exploit this gaping hole in the front. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm not sure where the German army is going to attack, which is a real strategic problem. So I'm going to concentrate most of my units around Moscow. Put one in Saratov. I kind of want to put another one in Stalingrad, and ideally one more here in the south, maybe 2, because we're going to need to establish some sort of strategic defense over here as well if we have any hopes to hold this sector. This would be a good time if I actually could to build up some cavalry, but actually, unfortunately, I don't have those. So anyways, I spent 28 production points, right? That's going to bring me down to from 62 now to 34 production points. So I still have a lot to build, but it's not as much as you would think. Take, for example, if I build up these 2 HQs, the Western HQ and Stavka, that's already another whopping 20 production points. And that's going to leave me with only now 14 production points. So I'm already at my limit as far as building up new Soviet formations. 14 production points. Yeah, we're starting to get, starting to cut it close. I think what I'm going to actually do instead is I'm going to build this veteran unit over here. And then I'll go ahead and deploy this 27th infantry. I'm going to put it in my COP. How about that? How about them apples? Put it in my COP. Ideally, we could have another unit in Orzonikidze. Place a unit there because it would also help with the strategic reserve in this sector. But I only have 14 left. I'm tempted to build up this Ukrainian HQ as well. Yeah, do I have any new Soviet reinforcements? Anything else that will arrive? I really don't. Oh, actually, I do have a tank corps in this sector. You know what? I'm actually going to put this tank corps in Orzo. I'm definitely butchering it here, or mispronouncing it. Technically, it's Orzonikidze. Orzonikidze, something like that. But we're gonna probably put it there. I think it would be not the best place, not great, not terrible. Why is it not great? I feel like this tank corps is just a little just oddly placed. I would rather have it placed somewhere else. But I figure we have a pretty strong tank corps reserve, and I say pretty strong relatively speaking because most of my most of my tank armies are under strength. They're absolutely under strength. They're completely under strength. So that's that. I still have 14 production points though. Let's go ahead and build this cavalry to full strength. I think that's going to be a good buy. Build up this cavalry as well. So that's going to leave me with 8. I don't think I have enough production points to build up the tank corps on this turn. They cost 4 apiece and it's just too pricey. So what I'm going to do instead is just try to build up more of my infantry reserve. So I have 8 left. So let's go ahead and build up any of my cadre infantry from the last turn. Try to build them up at least to a level 2 if I can. So that's another build. That's another build. So I have 4 more left. Probably want to reinforce Stalingrad. And then I guess just fortify Rostov as well. Rostov, Stalingrad, and that's it. That's all I can afford for this turn. This Ukrainian HQ is completely under strength right now. I think I'm going to leave it at level 0. Probably not the best move, but I'd rather have Stavka and the Western HQ at full strength right now. The Western HQ can command this whole sector, all these units. Speaking of which, I'm going to have to likely pull out of Smolensk. And then the Stavka HQ I can use to actually command the units in the southern sector, since it has the supreme moves that are not bound by range. And then, of course, the defense of Stalingrad, it's looking a little thin, quite frankly. It's looking a little thin. So actually, I'm going to try to transfer one more unit over. We're going to put this unit over here in Stalingrad. Maybe I should deploy 2 units in Stalingrad. I think Voronezh seems to be good enough. So I'm just going to leave my frontline defense at level 1. I'm going to put 2 more armies in Stalingrad, and I'm going to try to disperse them a little bit, because then they can cover like the northern flank of Stalingrad, right? That's the idea. You know what? It would probably be better if we put this tank corps, I think, somewhere over here. Let's put it in Saratov. And then I'm actually going to move in infantry. Just a simple infantry, leave it there. That seems a little bit better. I wish I had more like mobilized formations, some mechanized units, things of that nature. But I really just don't have that many points. That's the fundamental problem I'm dealing with. Unless I want to cancel building a unit, maybe we will. So that gives me 4 production points. No. I'm going to stick to what I have right now. So yeah, it's a very tenuous situation for the Soviet army. As far as combat power, we are in like really bad shape right now for the Soviet army. I think also there's a clear incentive for me to pull out as many units as I can from the Stalingrad sector. Excuse me, I said Stalingrad. I meant to say Leningrad sector, and try to get them moving to Moscow, perhaps, because if I were to do so, I could actually get like 2 more units. In which case, if I decide to do that, I kind of want to leave behind units at full strength, if at all possible, over there. So this is where like this last minute micromanaging becomes a very nitpicky thing for me, because I'm just trying to calibrate everything just right. So I guess I may have to sacrifice another cadre build. Yeah, I'm just going to sacrifice another cadre build. Actually, we don't need the 32nd Army right now. So I'll send this one back. And then that gives me 4 more production points. I can build up this unit in Tula, build up this unit here, the 50th. From my experience, I've just found it helpful to have the Soviet units at full strength as much as possible. But as you can clearly tell, unfortunately, it's just not really feasible most of the time. By the simple fact that the Soviets are just, we just don't have enough troops or enough formations, things of that nature. So that's that. This HQ, ideally we can fall back to Novorossiysk, and then eventually, if I can't, the Germans break out of Rostov, it's gonna have to fall back, and then hopefully from there I can do a strategic move and send it to Batumi across this sea, and then get it somewhere safe, because right now it doesn't feel very safe. But overall, I think it's a pretty good setup. Our defense of Moscow is still very tenuous, but the good news is that we do have reinforcements that are going to be coming from the Leningrad sector, at least 2 armies, or 1 army and 1 cavalry corps in all likelihood, that I could pull back, and that should buy us a little bit more better defense of Moscow. I also have the 7th Army here, which is at full strength. I was hoping to use it to defend Leningrad, but I think it's probably best move is to send it to Moscow if I can. So anyways, that's the Soviets. Very simple production. Pretty simple. Not bad. Maybe I want to put a unit in Novorossiysk, come to think of it. That would also be another thing. So something I'm just noticing is that, we'll go ahead and put one there actually. Something I'm noticing is just the Soviets, I actually set up a pretty strong strategic reserve all the way here. I've actually rebuilt 1, 2, 3, 4 armies all the way in this Caucasus region, or north of the Caucasus Mountains, right? But they're all just cadre strength. That's the only problem. But I have a lot of unit armies here, while in the north, more towards the north, I built up 3, right? I built up 3. So I've actually prioritized this southern sector more than I did the northern sector as far as rebuilding up reserves. Hopefully that's the right call. This is actually one advantage that the German army has right now. Soviet intelligence just is not certain as to where the German army is going to attack. And based off of just like the positions of the German Axis troops, it's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell. So that's that. We're going to move over to the Mediterranean. The British are building up a pretty nice defense of Alexandria. Our production right now in the Mediterranean is 30 production points for the British in the Mediterranean. You got 30 there plus a 0. And so that's going to be the equivalent of 6 dice rolls, each representing 5 production points. So we'll do that. And we got some pretty good rolls. I'm counting 7 plus 9 is 16, plus another 8 is 24. That's really nice. And with that 24, I already know what we're going to build. Let's build up these 2 mech units. Each of them costs 9 apiece because it's in the extreme cost build. So that's 9 production points per unit. That's 18 to combine. That leaves me with 6 left. And then that 6 is very easily spent on this Anzac infantry. So now what we have is a very strong defense of Alexandria. Very strong defense. Five British corps. 5 British corps, 1 infantry. The rest are, mechanized and a tank corps against whatever the Axis have. I'm not sure what they have. We may even be able to redeploy our formations to El Alamein. In fact, I would feel very confident right now that I can send these 3 units to El Alamein and then send these other 2 units to protect Alam Halfa and protect the flank of El Alamein. And it's going to be hard for the Axis to break through. So that's actually looking pretty nice. The only problem with the British setup is that we have like very low HQ, right? We only have 1 active HQ. And, I don't want to spend it because it's pretty much the only thing I can do is either withdraw. I can't really move the army. But since I'm defending, it's not much of a worry. My focus is just to hold the line. So that's that for the British. And then we'll also do our production here in the Western Front for the British. We didn't transfer anything over. Oh, let me move these icons over. And the British in the Western Front, their production is 22. So yeah, it's 22. I hope I've been doing that consistently. It would have been 27 because they gained 10 from 2 months. I'm just making sure that because in the past I've definitely messed up. But if I look at the Allied production gains, yeah, Winter 41 they gained 10, Summer 42 they gained 20. So yeah, we're good. So we have 22 production points. I think let's go ahead and build up our Supreme HQ. Definitely. That leaves me with 12 left. And I think that 12 should be probably focused on the infantry right now. Because, our this amphibious unit took a hit during the Battle of Cherbourg. And then this American unit, we could use the Americans too, sooner rather than later. Right? So there's that. That's 8 apiece. And then this last one, I'll go ahead and build up this British unit. By the way, this unit is a little E. This means expeditionary. So although I could send it over to reinforce North Africa, there are some supply limitations. But if it's able to trace its supply path directly from Africa to the Atlantic, across the Atlantic Ocean, it actually won't be penalized in any way. So there's an expeditionary unit. It basically needs a supply base, a special kind of supply base. I can show you the rule real quick, but I'm not going to talk about it too much since we are not even using the unit. But if I go to this front section towards the end of the game, there's a Northern Front, and here is the Mediterranean Front. It'll tell you about the 3 types of units. These same rules apply to the Northern Front as well. But you got the residents, which are restricted to that specific front. The veteran units, they're not exempt from desert maintenance. But they don't suffer from desert maintenance. Expeditionary units is like 1 tier away from veteran, in which they they can suffer from desert maintenance, but if they are if their supply line is based from Tunis or Istanbul, they basically do not suffer Morocco, Tunis, Istanbul. They don't suffer the desert maintenance. So basically, this unit would be very useful for an Operation Torch. And I just realized we're actually in summer 1942, so it's time to roll dice to actually roll a diplomatic event for the Allies, which is the Second Front rule. And this is probably arguably the most important diplomatic event for the Western Allied powers in the game. But if I look at the Soviet Allied diplomacy, it says 2F, Second Front, it's imminent. There's some preconditions. The Soviets are belligerent. It needs to be summer 1942, which it is right now. And then you got to count the Allied beachheads prepped or ready. And ready counts as double. So we have a very good chance, given how we have this prepped HQ over here. And then basically, what happens is that it looks like the Allies can declare war on neutrals cooperating with the Axis without betrayal. The main one would be Vichy France. The Canadian Met Corps becomes an expeditionary group. And then most importantly, the Allies gain the initiative on the Western Front, Mediterranean Front. Technically, the Axis have the initiative. That's why they get to roll first on that turn. But once this happens, that's going to flip. And now the Western Allied powers get to roll first on the Western Front. And it's now the Axis that rolls second, irrelevant to the weather. And so that's a big change. The Axis are going to lose the initiative on the Western Front. And now we could, in theory, do an invasion of Morocco, Algeria, something like that. Any reinforcements that I want to get for the British? October 1942, November 1942, really not much. We do get an extra HQ in November, but I'd rather try to see if I can rebuild a British strategy to perhaps maybe go for Norway, if I'm really willing to go for it. The only problem is I only have one beachhead right now. But there are some available ports to capture, so that's not really a big issue. The real challenge is to secure the naval base, because whoever controls that naval base controls this body of water. Whoever controls that body of water basically gets to control the supply interdiction rules that are going to affect the supply lines of any units moving across this body of water. And so since the Axis control Bergen, there's a probability that our supply lines are not guaranteed each and every turn that our units are deployed in these other ports. And you can look at the supply interdiction, and this table here, you got 3 columns. It says FNS, NP, ENS. It's friendly naval supremacy, enemy naval supremacy, and then this is I believe it's neutral, naval parity. And so this is the active player role. So I believe it would be naval parity as it stands right now. And as far as sea supplies, you have basically a 50% chance, a die roll of 1, 2, or 3, in which that can get repulsed. So our supplies, there's about a 50-50 chance that if we do invade, and the longer it takes for us to take Bergen, the harder it is going to be for us to actually secure Norway. Once we do take Bergen, this entire Norwegian face will collapse, and then we'll control this body of water, and we'll be in pretty good shape. Now, if it's enemy naval supremacy, right, it's the active player role, and technically when you check for supplies, you're always checking for enemy supplies. So these would be this would actually be the Axis player would roll for these supply checks, and if we do achieve naval supremacy, what would basically happen is that the repulse goes down dramatically. With sea supplies, it basically goes down to a 33% chance. And if we have a beachhead anywhere, it's now a 16% chance. So that's going to be, the incentive is clear that to invade Norway, it's best to do it when the Allies have naval supremacy. That's the real takeaway. The only way we're going to achieve naval supremacy, though, is one of 2 conditions. Either we can cut off this Axis northern seaway by controlling one of these major ports here, either Bergen, Trondheim, or Narvik. or we secure the central Mediterranean, the middle seaway here, and that's only going to happen if we secure Libya. We take all these naval bases: Algiers, Tunis, Tripoli, Benghazi, right? Those are all the four major naval bases we would have to capture in order to make to gain naval supremacy before the Allies, or we can just attack one, which would be like Bergen or Trondheim. So again, it's hard to say. It's all hard to say. I got to read up on the fortress rules for Trondheim. I don't know if that's an actual fortress or if that's a naval fortress. I believe it clearly is a naval fortress, but I don't know if it has the fortress advantages. I believe last I checked, the naval fortress, all it means is that it's immune to surprise attack. So it's like always in a full alert defense mode. I imagine it's going to be in the sea rules. That's what I'm checking, the sea power. Port capacity. It's going to be hard to find. So I'm not sure if it's here or if it's somewhere else. I mean, I would think it would be in these sections here. Seaway control, naval supremacy, interdiction, invasion, war and peace. No. If I do a quick search for maybe naval fortress, Control F, will I find it? No. Naval fort. Maybe. I feel like it's going to be it's going to be in the section where there's the rules on ports, right? You would think, right? Here's port capacity. Might be in this column here. Strait control, sea movement. I can also check the index. They do have an index. And maybe it's fortresses that I'm looking for. Not frontline hex. Fortress, F-O-R. France, nope. Firepower, Finland. Okay, here it is. Fortresses. It's talking about all the battles pertaining minor fortresses. But it doesn't talk about... Oh, fortified ports. Here we go. 1.44. So that was totally different sections, way in the beginning. Okay, here it is. Fortified ports. Really, they're only in the northern front. Are immune to surprise. Okay, units defending a fortified port can repulse sea invasions when surprised. Fortified ports are not the same as fortresses. Okay, they're different. So basically, I mean, Trondheim would be another valuable target as well. Or if I'm really ambitious, I can also try to land somewhere in like Namsos, way out in the north, and then try to march my army towards Trondheim. Maybe, you know what? What I think I'm going to do is maybe launch 2 invasions at some point. I'm not sure when. One at, actually Namsos is protected. Dang it. There's a German unit there. Chances of repulse, let's check the stats on that. Invasions, with naval parity, it's just like a river assault. So we have a 1 in 3 chance of really succeeding. Yeah, actually, this is movement. So our convoy can get intercepted, and then I think we got to roll a second time to see if we're gonna actually get repulsed by the actual amphibious assault. Yeah, so there's the movement interception or interdiction, and then there's the actual assault repulse. So we're gonna have to roll twice, and it further decreases the odds of us succeeding for sure. I'd rather land somewhere where we don't have to worry about that at all. The only two, we have these 2 targets here, Alesund and Aldalsnes, if I'm pronouncing that right. We got Haugesund and Stavanger. Okay. All these areas are valid targets, but we're going to deal with the supply problems as mentioned earlier. And keep in mind that our units here are completely out of position. It's going to take a while before these units can move. You know, over here in the north, I would have to have them march to Bremanger, and then I got to do a double march before I can get to Bergen. But once I can do a double march to Bergen, I won't have to worry about being repulsed at Bergen. So whichever marching route I decide to take, you know, we have a good chance. I don't think we're going to take the German army by surprise, though. That's another takeaway. So we'll see. We'll see what we do. We'll see what we do with the allies. But for now, we don't have that much production points, anyways. Our HQ here is at level 1, so that's that. So that's going to conclude the allied production. Let's switch over to the Axis now. And let's do their production. We'll start with the Mediterranean front. I said earlier that we were going to try to launch an all-out attack on Egypt, try to invade Egypt. We've already sent 2 units there. I'm telling you now, I mean, the British have responded really well. I mean, you know, obviously, you know, playing solo here, we know what the British have more or less. But, you know, if I was playing against another opponent, right? And by the way, if you want to play with me, just send me a direct message and I'm happy to set up a game. But, you know, if you look at this, we'll do like play by email, by the way. So it'd probably be like one turn. I'd probably imagine one turn a week, or maybe one turn every other day, something like that, whenever I can put in the time. But basically here, I mean, this defense of Alexandria looks tough. You know, if I'm presuming the British have a strong defense, I mean, I'm counting 7 units, 2 of which I know are HQs, so presumably about 5 British units. Our invading force, it's clear that the Battle of Tobruk that I launched earlier was really costly for the Axis. Trying to rebuild this 10th Army has been way more difficult than I imagined, far more difficult than I imagined. But we do have a pretty good assembly of Axis units. You could consider the Desert Africa Corps as pretty much 2 units if you want to. It's at full strength too. So I would say this is a cluster of 3 units plus a 4th and then a 5th. I mean, we're really evenly matched. Evenly matched. It's all going to come down to how quickly I can build up this HQ and how quickly can I build up these 2 Italian units. So that's going to come down to the dice roll. I say we just keep focusing and see if the window of opportunity is there. I have 25 production points for the Mediterranean front for the Axis, so it's less than the British. 5 dice rolls. Yep, we got less production. This time, that's going to be, 8 plus 5 is 13, plus another 3. That's going to put me at 16 altogether. And I'm going to go ahead and, that's actually a nice number. Do I have any production saved over? I do not. Build up the Africa Corps. Since it's in a port, it has sea supplies. Or actually, I think it just has regular supplies. Or maybe does it only have sea supplies? Let's just check up on the production rules again. There's some just wonky rules pertaining to the building of HQs in the Mediterranean front. But the rule of thumb is that you want your HQs to be near major ports, basically. I believe it is here in the production section. Yeah, it says HQs. HQs and sea supplies cost +5 to build unless they are in or adjacent to a friendly major port or in a Mediterranean minor port. Okay, so yeah, we're not exempt. We're not penalized at all. So that's going to cost 10, and then this Italian unit will cost another 6. That's all we can buy. And so we're at least on our way to building up. Both sides are preparing for whatever's going to happen in Egypt, presumably. So that's it for the Mediterranean front. The Western front, we have 17 production for the Axis, which is not a whole lot. But I'm going to go ahead and build up OKW one more time. That leaves me with 7 left. Let's go ahead and, you know what? I think this turn, I'm sure I'm getting more German reinforcements this turn, right? In July, I sure do. Nice. Two more units, very much needed units, I think, here in the Western Front. I don't know. If I want, I could also consider transferring this mech unit all the way to the Eastern Front. Personally, I don't like the mech units all that much because they're more expensive than infantry, but they don't have the same firepower as the panzers, but they are useful at defending. And so I think for the Axis, they're most cost effective when defending. Yes, it's more manpower on the Eastern Front, but as far as their costs are concerned, I just don't think they're really worth it. I'd rather build panzers and infantry because the infantry are far more cost effective, and the Panzer Corps are, I think, more cost effective as far as gaining more offensive firepower. They have the double fire bonus. So I think these units are better off just chilling out here in the Mediterranean front. We got one Panzer Corps that can defend the northern France, right? And then this other one, it can act as just like a mobile reserve that I can pretty much deploy anywhere in the sector if I need to. So that's pretty good. I think I may actually, yeah. So I'm gonna send those two, but actually what I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm gonna skip the German production on the Western Front, and we're gonna just save those 17 production points for next turn. And the reason why is because I want these fortresses to be at least level 2. Clearly, as it was showed in 1940, or at the start of this year, 1942, a few months ago, the British were able to breach a fortress just barely, but they did succeed at breaching it because it had it was only level 1. So there's one of two things I can do. I can either double stack these areas, I can put another, I need 4 more units though, right? Or 5 more units to protect all the ports. 1 more unit in Brest, Cherbourg, Dieppe, Calais, and Ostend. Right? That's 5. And right now, I could probably, in theory, I only have 2 more reserves. So either do that or, try to get all these fortresses to level 2. But the thing is, each fortress costs 10 production points. It's right here. So they are pricey, but they do ensure that we have a much better defense of the sector. And I think I'm going to stick with that. In September and November, I do get 2 more fortress units. And I think those 2 fortress units could be very much needed. I could put 1 more in Cherbourg again, maybe put 1 more in the north. And then I feel very confident that our Atlantic wall will hold no problem. And then maybe from there on out, I can divert my attention to North Africa, continue over there. We'll see. Probably by then, I would imagine it will be too late. So this OKW actually has to be reduced to 2. That means that this turn, I am not getting this Africa Corps or this Axis army in Africa. I'm not going to have it marching towards Egypt until the next turn, right? And then, frankly, we're dealing with a very tenuous supply line for the Axis. This HQ will cost 20 production points because it's going to be in road supply. That's not good. There's really from a logistical standpoint, it's really crystal clear that invading Egypt is a bad idea for the Axis. It's a bad idea. But the pro is that if we can take Alexandria, man, that will be such a juicy prize to take. At least Alexandria, because then it is a naval base, so we would control the Eastern Mediterranean, and then possibly from there. Once that happens, I feel much more confident in doing like these revolutions or these revolts in Iraq, Palestine, Syria, because now, in theory, I could do an Axis amphibious invasion from Alexandria into, say, Jerusalem. I could try to flank Egypt. The only problem, of course, is that, and then it also increases the chances of Turkey joining the war. So in that sense, we're still kind of following the historical geopolitical shift that's happening right now. So there is a good incentive. It's all going to come down to the dice rolls, I think. But for now, my focus is just trying to build up these units and trying to be as economic as I can everywhere along the front. So that's that. Now we can switch over to the Eastern Front, the main action. Axis production is at 79. Has it changed? Did we gain anything more? No, it's still the same. We haven't gained any production since our offensive. So let's go ahead and build up our HQs. Let's build up these. Okay, so that's already 3 builds. I think let's try to focus on maybe an assault on Leningrad too. This would be a good time to exploit Leningrad, given that, you know, yeah, we're in a pretty good position to attack. I say we try to take Leningrad, and while the Finnish are strong, while the Finnish can support too, that's going to be really nice. So let's try to consider doing all of that. Get the storm icons off, because technically it's clear weather. There won't be any storms. So yeah, I've just spent 40 production points. That leaves me with 39. I think I may even go ahead and build up this Didol HQ. For the Finnish, we also gain. We're gonna have the Finnish have 3 production per turn. I've been saving up, so we have 3, 6, and 9 for this turn. And with that, I could try to build up more Finnish. I could try to build up more Finnish units, pretty much. You know, I'm able to build up at least 3 more Finnish corps. You can ignore the other ones because it's just the allied version. 3 more Finnish corps. Each one costs 6 to build. Yeah, so, what to do. I mean, if we're going to make an attack on Leningrad, you know, I think this is the time to do it. The Finnish are ready. You know, the Finnish, they can't leave Greater Finland, right, which is essentially where this gray line is, but they can step 1 hex. They can be 1 hex adjacent to that. So that means that this one corps can make its journey as far as Leningrad. So we will be able to send this corps to Leningrad, and it will provide us with extra infantry. So the Finnish, in this scenario, the Finnish army is willing to fight for Leningrad, and it will be a big urban battle for sure. But with 9 production points, I can build up this Mannerheim HQ, which is a theater HQ, and the theater HQs do cost, oh my gosh, they actually cost 5 production points even for the Allies. So I have actually been making a big blunder there, folks. I think I've been spending 10 production points for the Allied theater HQ, at least for this Mediterranean front, at least for the British HQ down here in the south. And also for the Italian. I mean, to be fair, I've also been spending it on the Italian unit there as well. So I guess it evens out. But I just realized that these theater HQs, yes, they're less effective, but they also cost half the price. So there's a clear incentive then to try to build them up more. And so from here on out, I'm going to just keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and build 5 for the Mannerheim HQ. Build it up at full strength. It will have double fire support or single fire air support, but this unit will have double fire in Greater Finland. And let's have it just try to attack. Let's try to make it move south. And then while that happens, I can go ahead and build up this reserve Finnish corps by another 4, and that's going to cost a total of 9. And what I'm hoping is that with a full strength HQ, with this strong full strength corps, and with its northern flank protected, since this area Soroka is contested by this 18th German corps, I can then try to flank perhaps Leningrad, something like that, and then I have another corps in reserve that I can then move up. Either I can send it to here in the south to support the attack on Leningrad, or I can try to send it a little bit more to the northeast, try to break out here. And what's the advantage? Not much, but the Finnish do gain. You know, we will be able to at least put a little bit of pressure on the Soviets, which would be nice to see. So that's it. That's it for the Axis, or at least for the Finnish. We still have 39 production on the Eastern Front to focus on. Maybe I go ahead and build up Didol HQ. Do something to start getting these units out. Something to keep in mind, though, is the Soviets can launch an amphibious invasion, which I should be wary of. Although the chances of it being repulsed are pretty high. But ideally, I think I'm going to have to leave a German unit there, frankly, just to hold on to Murmansk. We don't want to lose Murmansk. So I'm pretty sure these 2 units they're kind of stuck where they're at. Likewise, you probably want to have at least 1 Finnish unit in Petsamo. I think what better unit than to move this militia unit if I can. I'm going to have to move it to Oulu and then do a double march from there through a double march and get it to get it all the way there to Petsamo, and it would be able to at least protect that northern flank. And then I can relieve this HQ, maybe send it off to Norway. I'm not sure what to do with it, but that's one idea. Or I can just say I can just disregard that altogether and just focus all my production here on this Eastern Front offensives. So we'll see. If I have anything extra, I think I will send it to the north. But the north is not really a priority right now. I think our priority probably right now, I still have to decide for the German army if we're going for Moscow or if we're going for Rostov. And it's hard to say, I'll tell you now, because taking Moscow, there's still a long journey before we can take Moscow. That's the first problem. And then the second problem is that, I mean, we can put a lot of pressure on Moscow, but the Soviets can still set up a strong defensive ring around Moscow like they did historically. I'm more interested in making a push towards here in the south. I don't think I want to push on Stalingrad, because the other problem to keep in mind is that eventually we're going to have to hold the flanks. And our flanks are very vulnerable. I think they are very vulnerable to a Soviet winter offensive, as we know in hindsight 2020. Right now in the summer, it's not much of a worry, but in the later stages, it's going to be a big nuisance for sure. Taking Stalingrad, I mean, is it worth it? 2 production points? It's not. I mean, it's nothing that critical. But if we take Stalingrad and Mike Hope, we do gain 4 production points. Include Rostov, it's another 5. It starts to add up. So taking these 5 or these 3 areas would be pretty nice. And then if we can somehow cross the Caucasus Mountains, if we can get there in time, then we can actually make a big push towards Batumi. Now, here's the other unfortunate problem that I'm seeing for the German army, which is that I just don't think we have enough HQs. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the situation as it is right now. I'll tell you now, we just do not have enough HQs. I think this OBW rather. I'm not sure what the B stands for, but this I think it's Oberkommando. This OBW field HQ, it should be at full strength right now, but it's absolutely not. So I'm thinking that even if I were to deploy it to the Eastern Front, it would be reduced. It would be only level 2 at full strength, and it cannot blitz. So that's some major disadvantages there. I mean, the short answer is that the front is just simply too large for the German army to launch concentrated movements. We have so much territory to cover. I'm even thinking now that we actually may even do like a defensive strategy for the German army in 1942 here. Try to consolidate our positions better, maybe like hold the river line, put some pressure on the Soviets, maybe try to achieve a few more victories here and there. Definitely want to take Smolensk and Bryansk at the very least. And just be smart, be cautious, be methodical. Of course, we don't have the fuel shortage issue that the German army had historically, so our incentives to drive to the Caucasus is not as big. But I'm thinking we should definitely take Rostov, but I'm thinking like it may be impossible for the German army to defeat the Soviet Union right now in 1942. I'm thinking let's consolidate our forces. Maybe we wait until 1943 when we actually have, maybe we wait until 1943 for a grand summer offensive when we actually have supposedly at least another Panzer army, including these Waffen SS Panzer Corps. That's one thing. And then the other thing to point out is that if we take Leningrad, I can then relieve probably a German army and a panzer group, as well as the entire field HQ from the Northern Front. And then I can transfer those units over to either the center or the south. I'll feel a lot more confident trying to do some sort of breakthrough or something like that. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Though the downside, of course, is that the Soviet army will probably be able to replenish all of its casualties by then. That's the only challenge. So we'll see. I think we're going to be in for an interesting another year of fighting. But for now, for the rest of this turn at least, let's finish the production. Focus on the infantry. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 4. 5. So that's 5 by 4 is 20 per 20. I've spent 20 already. That leaves me with 19 production points left. And then I can build up this Panzer group, or Panzer Corps rather. That's going to leave me now down to 11. Let's go ahead and build up without 11. I'm thinking let's yeah, maybe we should build up Deedle. And then that leaves me with 6 left. And I'm pretty sure that 6 is best spent on a mech core, because I'm not sure what else to spend it on, really. Yeah. And then I think we're going to shift our focus to Bryansk. I may even blitz with Army Group Center and go all out on Bryansk and Smolensk. And yeah, just really try to smash the Soviets. Maybe transfer another Panzer Corps rather, over there. Actually, this Panzer Corps should be built up. If I want to do that, it should be built up. So, I definitely don't want to underestimate I don't want to underestimate the Soviet defenses for sure, and I want to make sure my Panzer Corps are at full strength. I only have 6 left though, and if I cancel that build, that's going to bring me up to 11, let's say, and then with 11, you know, if I build up another Panzer Corps, that leaves me with 3 production points left over. Then unfortunately, I'm going to have to like toss out, which is something I'm not that interested in doing right now, unless. So yeah, hold on. I'm going to let's cancel this build. That brings me up to 11 again. Build this guy up. Now we have 3 left. If I cancel an infantry build, right? I'm trying to remember. I don't even remember which infantry I even built up, which is a bit of an issue. Oh man, I'm gonna have to like cancel everything again. Oh, this infantry though. This infantry, for example, I could cancel. Okay, I'm going to just start all over. I said I spent it on 4 infantry, right? Did 1, 2, 3, and then 4. You know what? I'm actually going to focus on Army Group North, come to think of it. So we still have, what was it, 39, right? Because I spent it on 4 HQs. Yep, 39. So let's go ahead and actually focus up here in the north. Yeah. Build up these 2 infantry. And then let's build up actually all 3 infantry. That's 1, 2, 3. So that's 12. If I build up these 2 Panzer Corps, it's another 16. 12 plus 16 is 28. 1, 2. And then that only leaves me with 11 left again. I mean, I think we may just have to make do with what we've got. Yeah, so unfortunately, we just don't have enough production on the Eastern Front to really like maximize our units, which is a bummer. But with, what was it, 11 left. With 11 left, I think I'm going to go ahead and build up. I guess we'll go ahead and build up another Panzer Corps. That leaves me with 3. I'll cancel 1. Oh man, this infantry is under strength too. Fudge. Yeah, we're just kind of short on units right now. I have 3 production points left right now, and I just want 1 more to build. Yeah. At least we're doing fine on infantry though. Yeah, no, I think we can make do with what we have. 3 more production points. You know, I may just toss them out for this turn. Clear incentive to take Bryansk, right? And perhaps even try to take Rostov, I think. Very clear incentive. Trying to go for multiple objectives simultaneously is tough, let me tell you now. It is definitely a challenge. So, you know what? As much as it pains me to do this, I think I'm going to cancel that infantry there. And then that leaves me with 7. That remaining 7, I can at least spend it on maybe a mech corps. It's better than nothing. Yeah, so that's the challenge of the German army is that we can attack somewhere, but we can't attack everywhere all at the same time. Definitely, and with 7, I can't even build up a Panzer Corps, right? So I was like, dang it. No, so I think we're just gonna stick with what we have. I may even hold off an attack on Rostov for now. I think Leningrad is a juicier target. Okay, yeah, so we're gonna focus on the north there. So let's actually start the turn. How am I doing on time? Wow, it's already been a whole hour. I don't know where the time flies, folks. When I do these recordings, do not know what to tell you. But without further ado, let's go ahead and I'll switch up these units here. How about that? Let's go ahead and start the turn. Well, technically we started it. What we're actually going to do before we go any further in the production, before I forget, let's do the diplomacy phase. I don't think the Axis have any diplomacy that they want to do, but we will do the dice roll for the Allied diplomacy for that second front. And so we'll roll 1 dice. They roll a 6, which is like the worst dice roll you could get. We go to the diplomatic events, and then we look at the conditions needed to get the second front activated. So the Soviets are belligerent, check. Count the Allied beachheads, prepped and ready. Ready counts as double. So right now I count 3. No, I count 2 actually. I don't think the Soviets count. I don't think this one counts for the, or maybe it does. I don't know. I don't know if this, pretty sure. No, I don't think it counts. So the British, they have 2. And where is it? Less than or equal to count. So we had to roll a 1 or a 2 in order for the second front to happen. It's not going to happen, not with that roll of a 6. Okay, that's that. We'll start the end this log file, and now we'll actually start the sequence for July 1942. So let's see what the Germans do. They had a pretty eventful June. Nice little surprise attack there. But the front is so spread out right now. I just don't think there's much more the Germans can really do. I'm thinking, let's put this HQ. I'm gonna try to keep it in the rail on the rails because it's gonna be easier for me to make it move around. Or I could just put it there. Oh, we'll just put it there. I think I'm gonna make it Blitz. Oh, you know what? No, we'll put it here. We're gonna make it a Blitz HQ. I'm trying to have a victory at Smolensk. Army Group North, though, we're not going to blitz from Army Group North. We're just going to launch a good old-fashioned attack with Army Group North, take our time with Army Group North. And what we're going to do is make an attack on Leningrad. Let's go ahead and do that. Or maybe we wait. Maybe we try to make an attack on Novgorod first before we make that attack on Leningrad. Either way, I mean, I feel pretty confident that we can take Leningrad, but you know, the Soviets could, in theory, reinforce it at some point. And if they decide to reinforce it, you know, it's going to be that much harder to take it because of all the double defense. So I actually recommend we focus on Novgorod instead of Leningrad. Thing is, yeah, so we're going to launch a regular attack. So I'm going to send my units forward. I'm going to send 2 infantry, 1 Panzer Corps, 2 Panzer Corps actually. And then I still have 1 more Panzer Corps in reserve, which is really nice, I gotta say. I gotta say that looks super nice. And then if I'm really ambitious, we can try a river assault across this area. The nice thing about that river assault is that it will definitely deny the Soviets. Like we're not going to have to worry about our flanks as much if we launch such an attack. That's the idea. That's the theory. It could be wrong. I mean, if the Soviets break out of Veliki Luki, we're in deep trouble. So you know what? Maybe I won't. I won't attack. And then this infantry thing we'll just put it here. Or you know what? I'm actually going to hold on. A unit just disappeared there. Maybe I send this unit into Veliki Luki as well. So the next turn I can pull it out. Sorry to say, we're going to just stick to that for now. I am a little concerned of a Soviet breakout of Veliki Luki. The good news, though, is that as long as they don't put too much pressure on our Army Group North HQ, you know, we do control the Gulf of Finland and the Eastern Baltic, so our supplies can come from Tallinn. So that's good. And they won't be able to reach Tallinn on one turn. So that's that. But yeah, we're going to launch an all-out attack on Novgorod. We'll keep the finish. We'll hold off with the finish for now. How about that? And then that's that. Do I want to activate OKH on this turn? Because we do get extra air support. The only problem is that we do get extra air support. So I don't know. I don't know yet if I'm going to activate OKH. I guess technically I need to figure that out right now before I do any other additional moves. But I know that what's clear is I probably want to move up this HQ at some point. Move up all these ground units, right? Just start getting them on the march. Instead of activating OKH, I'm just going to go ahead and activate Army Group A. Yeah, we're going to set up a defensive posture in this sector on Rostov. And we're going to try to, I'm going to try to attack, maybe we are going to launch an attack on Voronezh or something in this sector. I don't want to get too preoccupied with Voronezh because it is in the open territory, and later on in the winter campaign, it's just a pain. But what I do like to see is all these German units just advancing somewhere along the front. And again, the objective is to destroy Soviet units. That's like the #1 priority. So let's get our units marching to Bryansk. How about that? I'm going to send this infantry there. Then I can also send another unit into Bryansk as well. Another unit there. And then I can pull out one unit. So actually it would have been nice if we attacked with a Panzer Corps that was under strength, believe it or not. Interesting. So yeah, this production sequence was a little sloppy if you ask me. No. So before I do that, let's focus on Smolensk. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to send in this infantry in there. I'm going to pull out this infantry unit like that. Let's get these infantry on the march to the north. This entire cluster can like move up here. They will be like the reserve. Let's then pull out, yeah, we can pull out at least one guy. And then I can put in, right now it's four movements can be done around Bryansk with the hex height limits. So I can pull 2 units out, 2 units in, or I can pull 1 unit out, 2 units in. I think that's the better option. I think we're gonna maybe just attack Bryansk with just infantry for now. See if that works, because I don't want to damage my panzers while attacking it. And then that way we have a panzer army in reserve that can then be used to that can basically be used to reinforce Bryansk and Smolensk. I have a panzer army as well as we're going to deploy Army Group A this way. And then, yeah, that seems pretty reasonable. So we're doing that. What else? This infantry probably should have been built up, but it's not. So I can't even use it to attack anywhere. I think we're going to hold off on attacking Orel for now. Instead, I'm going to just try to set up some sort of defense in that sector. And then... yeah, and then the other thing to point out is that we could, in theory, put the Panzer Corps right here for now. So we're just trying to get as many units on the move. This Army Group A can then actually move up some of our Army Group South. I think I'll put our Army Group South probably in Kharkov. I guess we'll put it in Kharkov. I could try to attack Voronezh if I really want to. I'd rather not. I think all I'm going to do, I'm going to try to confuse the Soviets maybe. And I'm just going to inch my way forward just a little bit. I'm actually not going to attack anywhere on this turn. You would think, right, that we would actually want to attack, but no, instead, my strategy right now is just to establish like an offensive defensive line of sorts. Try to just get my units where I want them. So you know what? The infantry actually is better suited moving. We'll get infantry moving that way, this way, infantry moving that way. The mech, on the other hand, let's get the mech moving up north. One at Kursk, one there. Do I have any other mechs? I do. So actually, this mech, I'll put it right there. Okay. And the idea is just to stack up as many units as we can. I want pretty much all my mechs right here in the center, because I don't plan to break out of there just yet. So we're trying to shift some units around. Try to focus on industrial targets. And until we take Bryansk and Leningrad, I've decided we're going to hold off on any other attack for this campaign, even Stalingrad, because I do not want to suffer some terrible like backlash of a winter operation in which all our units just basically overstretch themselves. We do not want to see that happen. So yeah, right now I have the equivalent of a panzer group here in the south, right? Infantry, I'm just shifting a lot of units around. And then you know what? Well, maybe even can I move any more infantry? Yeah, I can. How are we doing with panzer formations here? I got two panzer groups here in the center, two panzer groups over here in the south, which is good. As well as this mechanized sort of defensive formation type. I don't know what to call it. Defense force, defense group, mechanized defense group. Definitely want to get this mountain unit moving south as well, because it will be useful to attack these Caucasus Mountains if we even ever make it that far. Yeah. Definitely our situation here in the southern Ukraine, definitely vulnerable to amphibious landings for sure. So it's in my strategic interest to get another unit in that area as well at some point. Probably just an infantry will do. What other units have I not moved around? This tank corps, for example, probably will stay put. But I kind of wanted to see... kind of wanted to put an infantry there, frankly. Right there. Yeah. I guess that's what we're going to have to do. And then this guy can go here. Looking pretty good. Looking very good. And then the only thing left for me to focus on, I think, Army Group South HQ. Actually, let's have it move to Kupiansk. How about that? And then what else? Panzer Corps. Trying to see. I gotta check that. Okay, no, it started in Kupiansk. Right, so we still have the Panzer group. Which is where the fundamental question is where to put the panzers. I think for now I'm just gonna create a giant wall of panzers here on the eastern flank. Do something like that. So yeah, we're looking pretty strong. But the thing is, I want them to be in range so that if I decide to make an attack in the north, I still can. So actually, the best place to put him probably be just leave it there at Kupiansk, frankly. And then I guess we'll just leave the Panzer Corps kind of on their own. Yeah. So we have a lot of units stacked up here. They don't have to be all stacked up there. But that is like probably the best spot to put them because they're in range to attack 1, 2, 3 to attack the north and also attack the south. So you know what? We'll put them here. This unit definitely should stay there. This what else? So 3 units there. Let's go ahead and guess we'll go ahead and leave it at that. And then interesting. Yeah, okay, that seems pretty reasonable. And then the real question is what do I want to do with Army Group A? Now, I mean, in theory, I could try to attack, but I'm very hesitant to attack with the German army right now. And maybe in hindsight, it's going to be a blunder, some sort of strategic blunder, but we'll see. I'm going to deactivate Army Group A. I think I'm going to leave it right over here. Yeah. Okay, so that's pretty good. I think that's as good as it's going to get. But at least we've been able to like get our units to gravitate away from the center and have them move somewhere else. And so we got a lot of formations just building up in this sector. And the nice thing I like about the setup is that I have at least enough Panzer Corps to attack in different directions, which is really what fundamentally I want to see. You know what? I'm going to do one more thing with Army Group A. Actually, before I deactivate it. So it's there. I'm actually going to get... I got 1 infantry to march, didn't I? Let's get where did this guy come from? I think he was already there, right? I'm gonna have him move there. And then this guy will move right there. Deactivate it like that. So yeah, some interesting moves, a lot of movement to keep track of, quite frankly. You know what, let's get this guy, which I think was started way over here. Let's have him move to Stalino, I think. Right? Or wrong? Well, I technically already deactivated the HQ, so I mean our turns are done. Yeah. Okay, so just a lot of movement. A lot of movement there. Could try to attack Voronezh if I really, really want to. But we're going to hold off. I want to see what the Soviets do. I'm curious to see what the Soviets do before we launch any other attack. I'm sure we could wipe the Soviets out, but I'd rather wait for us to close the gap, get a little bit closer in range of the Soviet army before we do another smashing blitzkrieg. The other thing to also figure out is what to do with OKH. And I think I'm going to have it, we'll have it march to the north, right over there. Because I think it's going to probably support the attacks in the sector as we make further advances with Army Group North. Okay, so let's actually put our airstrike markers on, one there. We are also going to put one here in Smolensk, and then we're doing an all-out infantry attack in Bryansk. Not bad. And then we have another reserve army and a reserve panzer group for Army Group Center. So my fundamental strategy for the German army, which is very different from the historical kind of, I guess you'll call it Blitzkrieg, Bewegungskrieg, whatever it's really called. But the Wehrmacht fundamentally, like, they did not really focus on having any strategic reserves when they attacked. Their focus was operational breakthrough, and that was the number one priority. I think as the war showed from 1939 until 1941, it worked really well against very short distances, right? I mean, if you look at the size of Europe, Belgium, France, each hex is about 100 kilometers in its width. So, you're talking about something on the order of, when I say small, I mean relatively small, on a global scale. But we're talking about operations that usually span maybe from 100 kilometers up to maybe 500 kilometers in distance, or 500 kilometer wide fronts, maybe about 100 to 200 kilometers in depth. That's where the Blitzkrieg seemed to work really well. But on the Eastern Front, we're now dealing with a front that is probably twice as wide, 1,000 kilometers in width, and you're dealing with a penetration that is easily 300 or 400 kilometers in depth as well. So fundamentally, that concentration of force doesn't really work when you don't have an enemy army to swallow up. And so instead of just going all out, just trying to blitz and focus on taking territory, my focus is on having like decisive battles on the Eastern Front, but I got to pick and choose where those battles take place, especially since I have the initiative. And so I think the underlying theme, the fundamental theme, I think, is that I just realized something too. It's fine. The fundamental theme is that, we're actually trying to ensure that our operations have some sort of reserve group to then figure out, like, how do we exploit the situation, since we don't really have control of the entire front. So that's just a subtle difference, but it's subtle, but it's on the strategic scale, it's a huge difference. And so I'm really trying to focus on having reserve formations for the German army, and maybe focus more on the Kampfgruppen sort of late war strategy that the German army had, in which they couldn't control the whole front, but it seemed like they were always able to assemble at least one panzer group, assault group, some sort of specialized task group that could then be used to smash or launch a counteroffensive, and again have a set piece, a battle somewhere on the front that the German army could win. So that's the theme here. Maybe you could think of it similar to Manstein's kind of mini offensive around Kharkov that happened in February 1943. Maybe something more akin to the Battle of the Bulge in 1944, although that one was very, very poorly supplied, and they were under-equipped, and they were dealing with terrible terrain for panzers to break through. But overall, I mean, we're trying to basically move the German army as little as possible, while also having a panzer army that then is in the best position to essentially smash. So with that, that's that. So you might be wondering, I have a gaping hole in the front. No problem, because I'm about to do a blitz on the next turn, so that will be addressed. But now let's actually do the battles. I think this is what we've all been waiting for. We did not attack Rostov. We didn't even attack Voronezh. I'm sure the Soviets are going to be confused. And that's another thing that the German army really failed to do historically. They kind of just did the same formula again and again and again, and eventually the Soviet high command caught on. By 1942, the Soviet army knew Germans are going to launch a big summer attack. They like to attack with their panzers. They like the Blitzkrieg. They have a very strong attack initially, but eventually they get tired in their offensive. And I would argue that in every strategic way, the Soviet high command won 1942, not just at Stalingrad, but also like the battles around Moscow and so on, putting the pressure on Army Group Center. Now, operationally, the Soviets were doing really badly throughout 1942, but at the higher strategic scale, they read the German high command. They read their moves really well, and that eventually culminated in Operation Bagration in 1944. And not to mention the battle Operation Citadel in 1943, the Soviets knew the Germans were coming. That was part of the reason why the Blitzkrieg towards Kursk really failed from the moment it started, pretty much. So anyways, let's go ahead and actually do these battles. I think you all have been waiting, coming down to the dice rolls. How are we doing on time? Okay, so still under the 2-hour mark. I should be able to finish this video up very soon. So let's go ahead and start with, we'll start in the north. Start this battle here at Novgorod. Start with the airstrike. Double fire scores 1 hit against double defense. Soviets have 3 double fire dice, followed by the infantry, single fire. They score 2 hits against the Germans, and they are going to cripple or damage the 2 German infantry corps. We still have a panzer group that's there. They're going to roll. They score only 1 hit, very bad, followed by the infantry. They score 2 hits. So altogether, we scored 2 hits on the Soviets. Not bad. Now, of course, keep in mind, the Soviets can reinforce. So we'll see how long it takes for us to take Novgorod. But that's all I have for that. But we also have a Blitz for Army Group Center, so we will have another round of combat there in the north. Then let's do Smolensk. Very important battle. It's probably been the longest battle of the war. Technically, this battle, technically the battle started in what was it, September 1941 that we attacked. It's now July. It's almost been a whole year, and neither side has gained any real ground in the fighting here. So it's been a stalemate. But the German army is trying to break that stalemate in this turn. So we'll see. The Soviet defense still pretty strong, or actually not that strong. The last turn, I think it was the last turn, the German army really smashed Smolensk pretty badly. The Soviets almost lost the city, and then they reinforced it, or the region around the city as well. So we'll start with the airstrike. No hits. Soviets get 2 double fire only, followed by the 7 single fire dice. They score only 1 hit against the Germans. Put it on this infantry here. Okay. 7 Panzer Corps. 7 Panzer divisions are rolling, followed by the infantry. They score a lot of good hits, 4 hits, followed by the infantry. 6 single fire. They score 5 hits altogether. Again, another crippling loss for the Soviets. So that was 5 hits, right? So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Now the Soviets are once again finding themselves at their breaking point at Smolensk. I don't think the Soviets can keep up with this rate of attrition. I don't know how many troops they've lost already. I think on the last turn, they probably took about, 6, 7 hits. That's the equivalent of easily, each division, each step is about 30,000 Soviet troops. The Soviets lost about arguably 200,000 troops in the last turn. Just now, they probably lost the equivalent of, 5 times 30,000, about another 150,000 casualties for the Soviets. I mean, this has by far been the bloodiest battle for the Soviet army, by far, the Battle of Smolensk. And then we'll also do Bryansk. Bryansk was also pretty bad. I mean, the German army in the last turn, they lost about 60,000 casualties, probably more. I mean, according to the calculations I had, they suffered casualties on the order of maybe around 60,000, maybe even more. About 60,000 troops, give or take. So pretty significant losses for the Germans. But this time, Bryansk is lesser defended because of the Soviet withdrawal, because of the disaster that happened around Kursk. So we'll see what happens. Soviets score no hits this time. Pretty sure they're demoralized by the fact that they had to pull out. And now we're going to roll, and that's 13 dice rolls for the Germans. Single fire. And then another 5. No hits, because they scored 1 hit, but they needed double fire to take Bryansk. Nothing. Zilch. So Bryansk is still holds. And okay, that's that. That's the only two or three major battles. We're going to deactivate Army Group North. And then we're going to go ahead and do the next round of combat. Now, I could try to attack Novgorod. Maybe we just hold off on attacking Novgorod. Why? Because our units are under strength, and I don't want my units to reach level 2, because then at that point we're going to lose momentum. We're going to lose our ability to sustain our casualties. So I'm going to actually stop with Novgorod, but we are going to continue on Smolensk and Bryansk. Now that we have more infantry at full strength in Bryansk, I feel more confident sending some Panzer Corps into there. So what I'm going to do is going to send a infantry corps to Smolensk, pretty much do the same formula. We have pull out another infantry. Where should I put it is a good question. I guess I'll put it up there near Orsha. Maybe not. I don't know. I might change that move. I'm feeling pretty confident. I say we just stick to the formula we have with the attack on Smolensk. We may not be able to take it on this turn, but I don't think the Soviets are gonna. They may not be able to reinforce. They may not be able to reinforce it. Another very important move is that I gotta close the gap in this front. So that's what I'm gonna go ahead and do. Move up an infantry corps. I'm also going to move this 55th Corps, Mech Corps. I'm actually gonna have it move it all the way to Stary Oskol. And it's going to make up like these three mech units are kind of the main defense right now on the central front. We do have a kind of a river line defense there, although technically not, because the Soviets can break out of Orel. So what it really is going to come down to is if I pull out of Orel or not, or if I launch an attack on Orel or not. This third Romanian army, I mean, I know they're not very good. Maybe I can send it to attack Orel. That might be one option. Probably the better option if you ask me. So let's see. I'm going to pull out this infantry, have it march over there. Then we're going to put a Panzer Corps. Actually, you know what? Leave that infantry there. We're going to move this weaker infantry, rather. Level 2. Have it move over there instead. Then I'm going to put a Panzer Corps. Put the Panzer Corps into Bryansk. I have another Panzer Corps in reserve. I kind of want to send into Bryansk as well. So I think what I'm going to do is, let's see, I pulled one unit out, one unit in. Let's get this unit in from this northern, from the western flank rather. And then I can do the same thing again with yet another Panzer Corps. I'm going to send two Panzer Corps into Bryansk. I really want to take it this turn. So 2 in and 2 out, right? The last unit that will go out is this guy. So actually, send him back. This guy's going to march out from here. This guy's going to march out from there. Hopefully that makes sense. These two are coming out from over here, and these other two are coming in from the western hex side there. And then, although not recommended to use the Romanian army to protect your flanks, I'm going to do it anyways. We're going to put it right over here. No, fuck that. I'm not going to send the Romanian army to protect any flank. Okay, we know what happens. We're going to send it into Orel instead. I think that's the better move. Maybe attack Orel. I should attack with at least 2 corps, I think. And then what I can do is send these 2 infantry, a little weaker, but they should be good enough to hold the river line there against any Soviet attacks. And I doubt the Soviets will be able to. And even if they do, and let's say they break out, I mean, where are they going to go? I mean, they can move to the north, they can move to the south, but we got plenty of supply lines coming in from the far north and the far south. I'm not worried about that right now. And then this infantry unit, we can put them right there, just kind of as a rear guard of some kind. If we take Bryansk, we're going to have really good supplies. And then I guess I'll move this infantry. Yeah, I'll move this infantry actually further south as well. That actually will protect the flank quite nicely against any Soviet breakout if that ever happens. So that's pretty good. Pretty good setup. And then this OKH I'll leave in Mogilev. And then what else? This infantry. Probably better used somewhere in the south, quite frankly. It's probably better used in the south, but I'm going to leave it there for now. You know what? No, we'll put it... I guess I'll do this. I'll pull this infantry unit out of there because I'm feeling pretty confident. And then this infantry, if really necessary, I can reinforce Bryansk. So that's that. Yeah. Now here's another thing that I want to read up on. I believe, I'm pretty certain that Orel won't have combat support. Because combat support can't go through enemy-controlled territory. And even if we take Bryansk, it doesn't matter because the territory changes at the end of every phase. And technically the combat phase, you have to do all the combat before the phase ends. So I'm pretty sure this area won't have combat support. I'm pretty certain of that. Maybe not. I mean, that's still a rule that I'm not entirely sure about. So let's actually find out. How are we doing on time? I don't want to go over the 2-hour mark. I got 25 minutes. So let's be quick about it. Supplies. No, we're going up to battles. Battle hexes. I want to learn about combat resolution, combat rounds. Combat is resolved by executing combat rounds in each active battle. Tells you about the sequence. The counterattacks, which are just basically the defender's die roll, pretty much. I want to learn, though, probably before I do that, I want to learn about changing fronts. No. Battles. Active battles. Are those which combat will occur in current combat phase. The active player indicates active battles. I want to learn about combat support. That's specifically the rule that I'm trying to look for. So it says, during combat, the active player can choose to have unsupported combat in battles that are not within command range of any active HQ, or when no HQs have been activated that turn. Okay. So maybe I got to read up about the actual HQs and read about how the HQs work for as far as like combat support. Yeah, active HQs can forego and remain activated during the combat phase. Following combat support. Yeah. Okay, that doesn't really answer the question. Talks about Blitz. Command range. Supreme HQ. Oh, no, that's not it. No, that's Supreme HQ command range. What about just regular command range? This is a good question, and I'm pretty sure they won't have combat support, but I just want to make sure that one rule as far as zone of control might actually be the rule I'm looking for. Yeah. It says command range can only be traced through friendly or disputed hexes, not through enemy or neutral hexes. Hex status. Friendly, enemy, or disputed. There's also neutral hexes from neutral nations. But what about hex control? Okay, here it goes. Hex control is defined as the location on the map at the beginning of each phase. Okay, there it is. And hex control status lasts unchanged throughout that phase. This includes production and diplomacy phases. Movement through a hex does not in itself affect control. In each new phase, hex control can change due to movement, combat, supply, attrition, etc. Okay. So I'm pretty certain that there won't be combat support because it is only going to be at the start of the turn, at the start of it. And right now, since Bryansk is enemy controlled, that command range or combat support can't go through Bryansk. So these units are attacking without any combat support. So that's that. So let's go ahead and do the Battle of Bryansk now. I'm going to put we're still putting the airstrike on Smolensk though. Definitely takes priority. But let's start with the Battle of Bryansk first. All right, so let's do that. Defenders roll 2. They score 2 hits. Very nice for the Soviets. Our 2 infantry corps take hits. We still have this 2 strong Panzer Corps, 8 divisions. They should smash Bryansk. Let's go. 3 6s. That's what I'm talking about. We still need 1 more hit, though. Come on, infantry. Give me that 6. Dang nabbit. They did not. So Bryansk, unfortunately, still holds yet another turn. We'll do the Battle Royale. No combat support. 4 dice for the defenders. They score 1 hit. We'll put it on the German corps. I want the remaining corps to be as strong as possible. So that's that. Pretty uneventful. We still haven't taken Bryansk. What a dang shame. And that's going to affect production and everything. But let's go do Smolensk. I know that by next turn we'll take it. I feel confident. Airstrike. No hits. Dang it. Defenders roll. 2 double fire, 2 single fire. Nothing. Panzer Corps are going to roll. They score 4 hits, and they just totally wipe him out, just like that. Done deal. The Soviets have just lost 3 more armies and another corps. So this summer offensive already, the Soviets have lost 10 armies. They've suffered about 1 million casualties already in just the first 2 months of the invasion. Very similar to Operation Barbarossa casualties. And then with that, we'll deactivate... Oh, I forgot to do 1 freaking move with OKH. That's fine, no problem. Move has already been done. I wanted to put it on the rail, but I think I can still deploy it and do that. And yeah, that's that. So, pretty interesting turn. Bryansk still holds, but the Germans are clearly making progress in other sectors. Now let's see what the Allies are going to do to respond to this situation. Let's see what they do. The British are not going to do anything. They're going to pass, I'm pretty sure. No reinforcements to North Africa. Nope. We could do 2 Supreme moves with our Supreme HQ and maybe move up some units to... maybe try to move them up to El Alamein. And that's certainly one option for the British right now. I think it's probably the better move. But that will require me to activate the 21st HQ right now, which is not really all that attractive. So we're going to hold off on anything with the British for now. But the Soviets are definitely the ones who got to take priority. The Soviets have a little bit of breathing room right now. So I think what I'm going to do is we got to hide all these units. I think the best option for the Soviets... Now, if we're going to do the one-step back policy for the Soviets, that means that all these Soviet units right now, they have to stay put to where they are now. And I can tell you now, these defense positions are not very good for the Soviets. They're good enough. They can hold out for maybe a month or so, but eventually they are going to get smashed. Likewise, same problem here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to activate Stavka, and I'm going to try to get as many units moving around as I can. Yeah, I think it would be advisable to reinforce Novgorod if we can. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to send another unit. We're going to leave the shock army here on the flank, though. So that's 1 move. Next move I think we're going to do is... Let's probably pull back our cavalry. I'm going to move it to... I'm going to move it right over here. Maybe I should move it to Rezhev, perhaps. Yeah, I think we're going to move it to Rezhev. Now, these 2 armies, the 10th Army and the 28th, are extremely vulnerable. I definitely recommend pulling those units out. But if we do, this whole sector just starts to collapse, and we want to avoid that. So anyways, that's 2 Supreme moves. The next Supreme move I'm going to do is I think I'm going to move this 7th Army to Moscow. Or maybe I can wait a little bit longer before I do. Let's wait a little bit longer. So yeah, let's get these 2 guys. We're going to create a defense in depth on the approaches to Moscow. I think that is the better move. So we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4 Supreme moves. I only got 2 left. And I think the best 2 right now for the Soviets would be to try to protect this river line. Might as well. And I think the best unit will probably be this guy. Now, they are cadre, but, you know, it's better than nothing, right? Right? Riverline defense. So there we go. And that's it. That's all the Soviets can do. That's all she wrote. And then, yeah, very tenuous situation for the Soviets. In fact, I would recommend that we create a defense in depth, try to fortify all these little towns. Oryazk, Michurinsk, Gryazi, all these areas could use more reinforcements. They really could. So I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You know what? So I'm going to actually cancel those 2 moves. We're going to just deal with what we have here. Let this gaping hole stay wide open. But maybe try to create some sort of just strategic secondary defensive line, ideally with infantry. It's a very tenuous situation. Very tenuous for the Soviets. In fact, we probably should just reinforce the 24th Army with something good. And I don't have anything right now. Maybe I pull it back. Very tenuous situation for the Red Army. Still, if you ask me, it's a very vulnerable position overall. I'm really trying to hold on to Leningrad, keep that production. I don't want to move the 7th Army just yet because, you know, whatever the Finnish have planned, I don't want if the Finnish break out over here, you know, our entire defense of Leningrad pretty much collapses. I mean, the city itself will hold out, will be put under siege, but our production will go out. So that's the only thing I'm worried about there. So yeah, that's it. That's all we're going to do for the Soviets. Not so 4 moves, pretty much protecting the approaches from Smolensk, which is the most direct route to Moscow. Probably the most important area to protect, I think. The southern sector, yes, we want to defend it better. But if we do lose all of this, we still can have this nice defensive line across what looks to me to be the Oka River or Moscow River. I'm not sure if this river is even historically accurate necessarily. I guess it is, the Oka River line. We can still protect the southern approaches of Moscow. But this is where our main strength lies, is in the south. And hopefully they can buy a little bit of time. But I don't want to pull back any units. And then okay, so if I'm going to do that, maybe we can move a little bit, a couple units. Let's put at least 1 unit in Kotelnikovo. I mean, it's clear that the German army has a lot of units assembled. I mean, these guys, even if I were to put them on the river line, they couldn't stop the German. They couldn't stop the German breakthrough, not at all. I still have 2 more supreme moves though. If I want to put them anywhere, I probably want to put them in Gryazi and Michurinsk. What unit can I put in Michurinsk that would be of value? Or, you know, I could also abandon Orel. Yeah, you know what? Scratch that. Switch those guys up. No. I take that back. 1 more strategic move. No infantry left. Do I have any? Well, we can definitely build up a lot more infantry for sure. Now on the next turn. Next production. But yeah. Well, I still have 1 more strategic move, and I just don't know what it should be. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No, it's too much out of range. So you know what? No, I'm gonna get this army here. Yes, Stalingrad is gonna be a little weaker, but we can send build more reinforcements on a later turn. We're going to put it right there. Try to create a little bit more defense in depth in this sector as well. I kind of want to see that also. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So not the most original plan, but at least it should slow down the German army. But it's not going to reduce our casualties for 1942. So that's it. That's it for the Soviets. And then the British, we're going to pass on their turn. Let's move on to the next fortnight. The combat phases go by pretty fast in this game, right? I think it's the movement and the production phases that take a little while. So let's switch back to the Axis. And now, the question is do we want to do any more rounds of combat? And I'll tell you now, all our HQs, all our field HQs are absolutely under strength. So the only HQ I really have left to activate would be OKH. And you know what? I think again I'm gonna pass on this turn for the German army, and just focus on production, focus on replenishing losses, and that way next turn I don't have to spend so much production on HQs. I can then just save up. So I'm gonna save up my OKH if I don't need it, and I don't think I need it right now. Yeah, that's that. The Soviets, I mean, if you look at the Soviet side, I mean, they have a lot of units all spread out here, but we'll see if it can hold. We'll see if it can hold against any German further drives. The Soviets clearly think that the main focus, though, is on Moscow, right? And that's good because right now, I mean, we still have a lot of units that we could use to push into, say, Rostov, possibly Stalingrad. You know, we're taking our sweet time to get to Stalingrad. We're not going to like rush that drive there. Maybe this is a good time for the German army to do a deep drive towards maybe Saratov, maybe Uralsk, maybe hit Guryev. You know, try to cut off as many Soviet supplies as we can. We may not be able to actually cut off Baku, but I believe there is a way. If we control this naval base of Astrakhan, we actually control the North Caspian Sea technically, and that is going to interfere with the ability for the Soviets to transfer supplies from, say, Baku to anywhere else. I could check up on that, but I think because of time, I have a little bit of time left. Let's find out. Let's go ahead and find out. There's a section in the game that talks about like strategic targets, like strategic objectives, and that's what I'm going to look for. So where is that? Somewhere around here, Soviet oil supplies. It says if the Soviets lose Baku or rail sea supplies to it, the HQ costs go up by 5. So that's a big loss there for the Soviets. Interesting. So if they lose rail or sea supply, so we got to look at the supply routes. They can have one supply path going to Krasnovodsk, right, and then that goes all the way around. The other one is via obviously via rail through this area, but we can take Astrakhan, but technically there's still one more supply route. So I'm pretty sure the only way we can really cut them off is if we are able to get to a place like Aktyubinsk. We can take Aktyubinsk and Astrakhan. We actually cut off the Soviet oil supply, and we would accomplish the strategic goal that Hitler wanted in 1942, which was to isolate Baku from the rest of the Soviet Union. So it's still a possibility. We still have 2 more good months of weather. It's all going to come down to the German ability to make the distance, right? This would have been a good time for the German army also to have had some cavalry units that they could have used to go across these swampy terrain, right? So that's that. But yeah, that's going to sum up the turn. Oh, let me switch back to the Soviets. And at the very least, just hide these units here. And do that. Yeah, so the Germans are going to pass. We're not going to even attack Bryansk, believe it or not. I don't want the Panzer Corps, our precious Panzer Corps, Panzer divisions taking heavy losses. We're going to avoid that at all costs. Which, by the way, historically was very different than what the German army did. They were willing to lose a lot of tanks. Quite often, more often than you would think. And then the only other option is to consider an attack on Norway, which maybe I activate this HQ, redeploy these units accordingly to do that. So maybe we'll do that for the British. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. No, we don't have to do all that. So yeah, let's go ahead and see if I can figure out the best setup for our units. This HQ is going to move back to London. That's the only one. And then this infantry will move to London as well. Although really, I really don't have to activate it right now on this turn. I don't think I really have to. But yeah, I say we try and attack on Norway. No. We're gonna just pass for the British. Keep it simple. That's that. So yep, that's the end of the turn. You know, I think I met my quota, right? Yes, I did. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed watching this video. I certainly had fun making the video. And we're going to stop there. The Soviets have a very large defense in depth. We'll see if it works. I don't know. I usually find it harder to play as the Soviets, and I think it's beginning to show since I haven't been able to patch up this defensive line. I don't feel like I have a very good strategic reserve, quite frankly. So we're going to see if this works. It might not work for the Soviets, especially if they're going to keep losing troops. But I don't want to retreat. I don't want to retreat just yet. We're going to hold the line. Other than that, keep Stavka at full strength, so not use it. And then see how the rest of 1942 goes. There's still a very real possibility the German army can win somewhere along the front, as they seem to be doing already. They took Smolensk. That was probably the biggest win so far for the German army. And they smashed a bunch of Soviet armies. Yeah. So with that, I'm going to wrap up this video. Thanks for tuning in. I will see you in the next one. Peace out.